committed murder, there's no way in hell you should have access to your children anymore. I apologize if we're becoming a murder podcast. But if I could find the way to go, okay, I believe I did what I did because my husband, ex-husband now, because I murdered him, my husband was, causing harm to my children. I did it out of self-defense for my kids, and you can put me in jail as long as you want.
One more cold drink, one more roll, one more dance before the doors get closed. Please remember, enjoy the show. Let's get happy before we get old.
My conversation today is going to be circled around why I named this the Dean West Perspective. The other day, someone had asked me, why did you go with that name? One, I have a career as an actor, as a coach, and people know my name from that. And while I could have went with, other things that also kind of tied in this idea of what I do here, which is kind of talk about acting, life, spirituality, health, our social world going on around us. I wanted the option to be able to go into different areas and topics because the world shifts so much and I shift a lot. I try to keep myself from ever finding too much identity in one thing, whether that is, if you ever seen my Instagram at some point, it was just like actor, father, doggy dad, spiritualist, acting coach, martial artist. Like, I don't subscribe to one size fits all for anything. So that being said, I wanted to leave it just as an open-ended way that I could have conversations with or about whatever I so choose. And I know that's not the smartest of, niching down, as they say in the marketing world. I could have just done this whole podcast being only about acting. But to me, acting is about so many different things. As an actor, one of the reasons I loved this craft and this career was because I always got to switch up what my focus was. Every new character I took on or script I picked up, there was some different details that I got to go into, a different world, a different walk of life. And that was one of the things I loved so much about acting class, was that I was able to understand and do research and put myself into different places, whether that is different careers, jobs, different, I wouldn't say ethnicities, but cultures, right? I was able to figure out what it was like growing up with X type of family. I was able to think and put myself in the mentality of what it was like growing up in a small town or a big city, whether that be New York, Chicago, whatever it was. It allowed me to play with different accents and different perspective or perceptions of the world. And so when I named this the Dean West Perspective, I wanted to really allow myself to give myself as the filter for you all, to let you see what my perspective on the world or things are. I think a lot of times, especially, nowadays, everything is so black and white. And I've always had a very nuanced gray perspective of everything, right? If someone says, let's use the internet and the dress as an example, the dress is gray. No, the dress is gold, or whatever the conversation was about the dress that everyone saw on the internet. And everyone was literally having an argument of what color they thought it was. Well, in reality, all of us see colors differently. We all see different tones. We all see not only the quality of the color, but the temperature of the color. Our personal perception, from vision to hearing, our sound, the audible tones of voices sound different to each of us. So knowing that your senses sense things differently than everyone else, well, then we're going to hear things differently. We're going to see things differently. Not to mention that, again, we talk about a lot of things from the acting perspective. And as an actor, when we get a character, we do what we call the character breakdown. So we go through a list from A to Z of all of the different aspects of this person's life, how they were raised, who they were raised by, what their religious beliefs were, what the family's religious beliefs were, um, what class were they in? Did they grow up rich? Did they grow up poor? Were they somewhere in between? Were they on the good side of the train tracks, the bad side of the train tracks? Did they, did they go to a school? Were they homeschooled? Were their parents of blue collar, or were they working class, and were they in hospitals? Were they, working at a college? Were they progressive? All of the different things that change us. And so when you do a full character breakdown like that, every time you take on something new, you have to allow yourself to go dig into that world and try to see things from other perspectives. I could put 5 people in one room and ask their opinion on something. Depending on what I'm asking their opinion, it's going to vary hugely depending on where I got those people from. If I pulled in someone from California, I pulled in someone from New York, someone from Wisconsin, someone from Louisiana, and I asked them a series of 5 questions, their perspective on the answers would be so completely different from their spirituality, from the religions, from all of those things. Their opinion on it is based from their parents, from their grandparents, from literally the line of ancestry that they have, because all of us are shaped by this world that we're in, and we're not all in the same world. We don't have all the same set of facts. I know that even just saying that reminds me that people are going to stir and stew on that one point, that while we all have certain facts, that I'm not negating that there aren't facts in the world, right? 2 + 2 is 4. But what I am saying is our perspective on what we believe the facts to be, and or how the facts became the facts. Those things tend to differ depending on how you were raised, who you were raised by, what you were around, the world you currently live in right now, right? Our world has been really polarized with the politics and everything going on, that it's easy to get stuck in the identity of the group think, and it's safer for us to go along with what the majority of our friends and family believe versus rocking the boat. Even if I heard something the other day and I thought it was really well said, that we're not all in the same boat, right? We aren't all in the same ship. We are all in the same storm. We are all dealing with the exact same storm, but the boats we are in are different. Some have canoes, some have yachts. We are all in the same storm, but we have different boats. And to assume that we all have the same perception of the storm from the boats or yachts that we are in would just be crazy. If I'm on a yacht, the storm may not seem that bad. If I'm on a little buoy boat, that's one hell of a storm. So I think if we take into context that while we see life from our personal perspective, or my own personal Dean West perspective, again, now you're seeing the reasoning behind this name, then it allows us to kind of take a step back from the identity that we're living in, right? It lets us let go of the identity, because if you think of identity as a box, so if I identify, so I'm I'm a mutt. I'm Spanish, French, Indian, and Irish, and whether I'm Spanish or Mexican really depends on maybe who my grandmother is dating at the time. I think she's told me different things over the years. I should probably do one of those 23andMe things and figure it out. But anyway, my point is, my perspective on the world is going to always be different, and it's always going to be changing, because I don't let myself get stuck in the identity of, you think about politics, and it almost becomes these two different boxes where I can put everyone in box D if they believe XYZ. I can put everybody in box R if they believe XYZ. And then everybody in between has the idea of all those same things, if they even think about them. Not everyone even, some people just try to stay out of politics altogether because it becomes such an us versus them thing, and it just separates the masses into these two parties that try to be on the opposite sides of each other. And I believe, yes, that I think we should always have these altered perspectives. We should have people arguing, speaking for everyone in each boat that they come from. But if we can't allow ourselves to understand that, okay, if I can't go get in that buoy with them for a little while, it's going to be hard for me to create laws or rules for the ones that are in the buoy if I'm on the yacht, and vice versa. It's hard for me to make rules for the people in the yachts if I'm always in the buoy. And of course, the people in the buoy probably would love to be on a yacht, but I think that's something that with acting, that's where a lot of the power can come from in our self-exploration and the changes that we can allow to happen for ourselves, right? We're always trying to expand our consciousness in a way that we can let ourselves see the world from so many different points of view. We want to let ourselves go into the places, and I usually challenge people, find a character that is maybe far from you in a way that they have beliefs that you would say are the worst possible beliefs ever, right? To find, and usually this goes to someone like a Hitler, but find a character that you believe is so far away that has an altered perspective of the world than you, and try to understand how they maneuvered their way through the world and making the decisions they made from a perspective of love. And I say that meaning that find a way to look at the world and what they did, and try to see if you could have been doing that for what you believe to be. That's the key here. Nobody clip this and make me sound like a psycho. Find a way that you would be able to understand the actions that you made from a reason of good. Was there a reason that you did what you did? And I'm going to take something that's not so heated as a Hitler. Let's say mother of three murders ex-husband, blah, 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 blah. There are people that would jump into the camp to support the mother. There are people that would jump into the camp to support the father because it was murder. Person should go to jail, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah is a technical term. So, if you don't understand, you feel free to Google blah, blah, blah. But if you can step into the shoes from the mother's perspective, I could judge that mother and go, who no one in their right mind would believe that a murderer should be able to raise children, right? Now we dig into the story. If I was going into this to play the mother, I have to justify what I did in a way of support, in a way of love, which is an easy way to flip, of course, right? I could say that I did what I did. I murdered my husband to protect my children, right? I could say the husband was doing harm to my kids, whether it was physical, sexual, mental, whatever it was. I could easily justify, maybe this is because Michelle and I are watching that Ginny and Georgia TV show that my head went there. I don't know. I apologize if we're becoming a murder podcast. But if I could find the way to go, okay, I believe I did what I did because my husband, ex-husband now, because I murdered him, my husband was, causing harm to my children. I did it out of self-defense for my kids, and you can put me in jail as long as you want, right? I murdered someone out of love for my kids. I found a way to look at that without the judgment versus, oh my God, I've got to play a murderer. How am I supposed to look at playing a murderer from a perspective of love? Well, if maybe you come from a very religious background and you believe that murder is the worst sin possible, that's going to be hard to do, right? You have to be able to tweak these beliefs that we have, that some of us have foundational beliefs we can't let go of. And maybe, going through this acting work is why I became so loose in what I call identity. I didn't want to be stuck in identity. I wanted to have my own ideas, and I didn't want them bound by my commitment to others or commitment to groupthink. The second book that I'm trying to get finished up right now, and then moving into the third one, is kind of that. I want to break these beliefs. I want to help people find a way to let go of what they were locked into. And I don't mean that in an unhealthy way, because some of us found a perspective coming from the religions that we grew up in, or the homes and rules that we followed. And we have a very healthy outlook towards the world. I'm not saying that anything came from a negative perspective. I grew up Catholic, and while I no longer consider myself Catholic, I don't even consider myself Christian anymore. I wouldn't put myself in a religious group, period. I just don't. I don't find that I identify fully in any of those, nor do I want to. Because I want to have my perspective and connection with God, source, energy, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter to me. But I want my connection to the collective consciousness being my own, and whatever that becomes. And I don't want to set a boundary, because I want it to be able to shift and jump back and forth over the line so that I'm able to explore these places. Because if someone, marks off a section of the world and says you can't go there, well, we all want to go to that section of the world now. I want to go in that marked off section because I'm pretty sure it holds some answers to what I want answered. And if someone ever, if I were raised Catholic and someone told me, no, don't go look at Buddhism as a religion. That's crazy. Don't look there. Just mark that off your boot, right? Or Islam. Don't go look into those religions. I want to go understand this now. I want to see what is it that, millions of people have found their way to and found joy and commitment in. I usually say to actors, look, not trying to break a belief, but maybe trying to break a belief a little bit. I'll be honest. The only reason you are the religion that you are is because of the home you were born in, or the town that you were raised in, or the country that your mother and father brought you into. Because that was their belief. Had you been born to the neighbor next door, you may have a completely different belief system. You may have a completely different perspective of the world. So, long story short, I named this the Dean West perspective because I have had a very specific, different, intricate walk of life myself. I let myself go into different religions to understand them, not to become them. I allow myself to ponder thoughts that may be taboo. I let myself live a life that, could be considered sinful, or whatever you'd like to call it. It obviously depends on your religion or your point of view of what you think sin is to begin with. So I say that because, going through this podcast, it's going to be my perspective on things. It doesn't mean I get it right. It doesn't mean I understand or know it all. It is far from that. It just means that from the perspective I have, that I have gone through to understand or learn or have ideas of the world, they're my ideas because of what I've gone through. Your idea, your perspective, your personal voice that I hope that you continue to develop is yours because of what you've gone through, what you've learned, what you've experienced. It's okay that you don't have the same perception. It's okay that others don't believe the same thing you do. Don't look at other people's beliefs being opposite of yours, being the negative versus your positive. Neither of us are negative or positive. We just have a perspective on the world based on the beliefs and the way that we were raised and what we've experienced in this world. So I ask that you do things every day that put you in or out of your comfort zone. Read a book that someone else would probably enjoy or that someone else might dive into. If you are in a religion, maybe pick up the opposite, or not opposite, but if you are a Christian, maybe pick up the Torah, give it a read, and vice versa, right? Pick up the Bible if you're not necessarily Christian or have those beliefs. Not to become a different religion, but to understand what so many have invested in. I think all religions bring a certain understanding of the world, and for me, I would not be who or what I am without the Catholic religion and how I grew up, and the people that were around me in that religion. I had such a wonderful youth minister, and I went to a funeral not too long ago, and I saw a lot of those friends of mine from the Catholic Church that I grew up in, and it was so wonderful to see them. We embraced, we hugged. I loved them so much, and we probably have completely different beliefs. My mother and father-in-law are very Catholic, and I speak with my father-in-law often because, while often he still thinks I'm very Catholic, which is great. That's fine. It's his perspective of me. Even though I've probably told him I'm not. A lot of my beliefs still weave through so many religions, because to me, fundamentally, all of these religions have a foundation that's very, very similar. And I know that some people in those religions think that's blasphemy by itself, that to say any other religions are compared to their own. But I think that's the point of this, right? If we could stop I was going to say the ruling class, but I don't mean the ruling classes in the Bill Gates and the rich people of the world. I mean the ruling class as our historical childhood, the people that created these boxes for all of us that we all found our way into without knowing, because, kind of like our beliefs right now, you never made a conscious choice to make these beliefs. Your subconscious was wide open, and it was affected by everything and everyone around you. And you eventually, with habitual practice, became the person you are with the beliefs that you have. So when I say our historical childhood, I think all of this, obviously, and this, I don't think it could be argumentative to say that I think all of us clearly came from the same point at some place in history, to the fact that we have had boxes built for everyone. War and fighting has been around for who knows how long, probably as long as we've been here, to see other tribes and other people in different places, because we thought it was enough for us versus them. And at the same time, that could be the horrible history that we believe, that we adopted over the years. There could have been complete world peace in the past, until we started realizing that we could, instead of growing our own food, steal other people's food. Instead of shooting our own deer, take the deer that someone else shot and just kill them, right? Until we get to a place of fear and lack, which I think is where a lot of people ended up, obviously, going forward in history. Now, a lot of people live in that fear and lack, which makes, if I have fear and lack, that I'm scared of someone or something, and I lack what I need to survive, so I have to fend for myself or take from others to have that. But if we live in a place of love and abundance and acceptance, then there's enough for everyone. I love you as you love me, or as I like to say, the God in me loves the God in you. Because we all have this source. Even if you don't believe in God, if you logically kind of look at the world in the way, and when I say God, I of course mean energy, source, whatever the context you put it in. When you look at the world in that way, if there is this something, at some point there either was a nothing or there's always been a something. And if that little something developed into this all of something, then again, retroactively going into our far, far distant history, the big that keeps growing bigger must at some point been much smaller. And again, I'm not trying to get into the point of whether you believe that that is a god, gods, whatever that thing is. No matter how we play with it, even if I say, were we in a multiverse and there's multi-universes and every frequency has its own multiverse, which, has its own mini planets and big planets. If you've never seen what a fractal is, I go Google fractal and understand how these fractals grow. So if I were to show you my hand and it had 5 extensions, each one of those extended fingers had another hand at the end that had another finger, had all the same thing. And it is an infinite number going outwards and inwards of these fractals. And it's kind of the way we look at our universe now through metaphysics is this inner world and outer world, meaning that those fractals, continual growth, and if you can Google Fibonacci sequence, you'll see that everything in growth, whether that be the beginning of a single cell all the way to the most massive whales, are all built in this Fibonacci sequence. We are all mathematically built the same way, no matter what the weird shape you are. You think of a seashell spiral, right? So I say all that to, and I have some really cool guests coming on soon that we're going to dive into some of these things. Robert Grant, if you want to go check him out, we were chatting about coming on the podcast and talking, but he's a polymath and he understands the world from this mathematical equations. And there is so much stuff that would just blow your mind about the world that you've probably never even thought to think about. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming along this journey of the podcast. I don't know if while I, like I said, I don't identify, and I try to keep myself from identifying as so many things. I used to identify myself as an actor fully, and there's been a lot going on over the last 5 or 6 years that I've slowly transitioned myself, that I don't necessarily call myself an actor. I do still produce here and there, and I probably will continue to act on and off, but it doesn't have the passion that I used to have for it. Not for the actual craft, not for the understanding of what it brings me, not for actually doing the work, but kind of the industry as a whole and the politics and everything else that's been kind of getting played in throughout all of it, this new AI world that's coming. And I don't say that as a discouraging way. I think it should be. My acting coach told me a long time ago that no matter what it is you decide you want or that you have fun, passion, love for, do it fully. He knew then that not everyone, obviously, in his acting class was going to continue on to be an actor, and I'll probably continue acting till I'm dust in the ground, to some extent anyway, because I really do enjoy what we do as actors. It's just not my main focus anymore. So I always look at it as I want everyone to take from this craft and this acting stuff a way to affect your daily life and your mental health, because that's one of the things that I think acting was wonderful for me as well. It helped me with my mental health, and we'll dive into that in future episodes as well. Anyway, I'm going to continue to ramble because I can, but I love you all. Thank you for coming along this journey. It's such it is a new passion of mine to be able to have these conversations and talk about the things that we're talking about. And I hope it shifts you in a way or opens your perspective. If I start saying something in any of these podcasts that angers you, dig deeper into it. That's a good thing, by the way. If something butts up against you, then it's usually what I talked about in a previous episode. Go check it out, called Mirror on the Wall was the name of the episode. But the universe always creates a mirror effect for you so that you can see that everything outside of you is also what is within you, and the things that you may have some of the biggest problems with. Look into the things that I may say that upset you. There might be something there for you that could help you elevate to another level of consciousness. It can make you elevate to evolving into a better human than you are now. We always have room to grow. And like I said, I don't know everything. I'm just fumbling my way through to figure out all this amazing world that will continue to unravel, because like I mentioned in the fractals keep growing. So our universes keep growing. Our understanding keeps growing. And this will be the last time that I say this, but I promise I am done for the day. Thank you all for hanging out. I've mentioned the courses that I have. I put together a beginner acting course that kind of works our way through our basic 12 techniques. And I started, before I jump into the techniques, all of this kind of different places and understandings of how I see the world now, going through all of these different perspectives. I lied to you. I'm clearly going to keep going. But if you get a chance, right now I have the course. You can find it on the webpage and all that. I might do a big... I'm going to. If you follow this episode right now, go check out the course. I'm going to set it to $55 for the next month. Go check it out. Let me know your thoughts on it. One, the course on just the acting side of the course is what normally would be about a 12-week class with me, and 12 weeks every month was about a $250 or $300 commitment. So, you're getting about $1,000 worth of classes for this $55. But I would love for you guys to start checking it out. I haven't really been pushing it to everyone. I haven't really launched it or did like marketing campaigns on it or any of that. But I think it's a really cool layout and a cool structure, and just the universal side of it, I think would be fun for most of you guys to take a look at. Even if you're already an advanced actor, or you've never done a technique class before, but you've done a bunch of audition classes and things like this, it's a really neat way to work your way through going through some of the techniques. I went through my coach, my mentor, Aaron Spicer, and he taught from Uta Hagen's book, Respect for Acting, which I also reference in there, and you can work through that. And I also obviously have the book of An Actor's Gift to Manifestation that's out. You can find that on Amazon, and it talks about some of my own experience through acting and where I found myself in the spiritual world. And then it kind of starts giving kind of the layout of why I started looking at it the way I look at it. And that is the actual end of my podcast today. Thank you very much. I love you, and I will see you next Thursday.
One more cold drink, one more roll, one more dance for the doors get closed. Please remember, enjoy the show. Let's get happy before we get old.
My overall goal is to help people find tools and processes that can increase your health and wellness, all while building the life you desire. You all know how important ingredients are to me, and that's why I want to share Organifi with you. I use a lot of their tools, and here's why. All of their products are USDA organic, certified gluten-free, glyphosate residue-free, non-GMO verified, and supported by Vitamin Angels. Everything is sourced from ethical farms and delivered in sustainable packaging. You can go to OrganifiShop.com and use code WEST20 for a whopping 20% off.